Let's talk about Gale Force. Now, this is a ride with some interesting history. This is a roller coaster at Playland's Castaway Cove. It is by S&S and is the first of its kind. Now, what makes it interesting is it was supposed to open up last year in 2016, but didn't open up this year until 2017. I got to ride it earlier this summer, and so let's go in depth with it, talk about the ride experience so you can know what to expect, and then you should know if you should go out and ride it or not. Running through the stats real fast, we have a height of 125 feet. That is pretty tall for a boardwalk park. Like, there's a lot of amusement parks that don't have rides that tall. And here we have a park by the sea in New Jersey that is a coaster 125 feet tall. That's really impressive. We have an angle of descent of, look at this, 100 degrees. 100-degree drop. That's really steep, guys. Again, that's like really crazy. That's a really impressive stat. We have a max speed of 64 miles per hour. Again, like that's pretty good. And then we have a track length of 1,269 feet. So pretty short, but it also is done in the layout kind of like a Skyrocket too. So it passes over track sections multiple times in certain areas. So that makes up for the short track length. But it's also going to be a lot longer of a ride than Skyrocket 2's. So what's fun is I went into this expecting to like it more than a Skyrocket 2, and believe it or not, I do not think that these are as good as the Premier Ride Skyrocket 2's, at least this one. Now, if they did some more of these and maybe changed a few things, I think they could be better. But I'm going to get back into that comparison a bit later. Let's walk through this ride experience. So you're going to enter the coaster station after, you've paid for it with your wristband or whatever, and you're going to put all your stuff in these bins, and these people are actually going to scan you down with a magic wand like metal detector system to make sure you have nothing in your pockets, nothing that can fly out. That was kind of the first thing that I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And you're going to board your vehicle, and this is a weird ride vehicle. The seats are really low to the ground, and there's a floor that, like, you feel like you're crouching in your seat. For a second there, I thought that the floor was going to like drop out beneath me because the floor just didn't feel right. It felt like very odd placement. So the trains are very bizarre. You pull down your over-the-shoulder restraint and it's going to be like the S&S free fly coasters. So really no complaints with the restraints. So you start off with that first launch. And let me say, this is a very bizarre launch. Like, I'm not quite sure what happened here because normally launches are going to be very smooth. Like, you have a smooth acceleration, but it starts off, like, really slow, and it kind of, like, shakes through the launch, and then, like, halfway through the launch track, then it accelerates to, like, that faster speed. It was, like, really weird. Like, this is probably one of the most bizarre launches I've ever felt. Not in, like, looks, but just, like, in the way that it feels. It didn't feel right. It felt like the launch probably wasn't as done as well as it could have. So that was kind of the first red flag. You pop up a bit, kind of like your Skyrocket 2, and then you're going to fly back into that backwards launch. And you're going to go up through this like half turn. Now there are several maneuvers on this ride where it feels like it's going to go upside down, but it doesn't. This ride actually doesn't go upside down. But there are several moments where it gets close to it. So you're going to pop up, you get that moment of weightlessness, and then you're going to fall down. And again, you're going to kind of accelerate through that launch. This one isn't as weird as that first acceleration, but this is when you're going to hit that top speed of 64 miles an hour. You're going to twist up into that top hat. And this part is pretty cool because you're really high up and then you're just descending like down underneath yourself, 100 degrees. So following that drop, you really dip out, you crest down, and you fly up into this weird transition. You're like banking sideways, diving back down, going through this another like half loop, but again, it like doesn't go upside down. You're twisting in and out some more. Like, it's kind of hard to like follow this ride layout. Like, even when you're on it versus like watching it, it's kind of hard to like follow where the train is going next because all of the elements kind of look the same. But essentially what happens after that is you fly back down through the launch section, you pop back up a bit, and then you go backwards into the station. So the ride length is fine. I think they did the best that they can, and they do a lot with the actual layout and like for the amount of track length that they had. The huge downside is, my gosh, this ride is shaky. Like, it's kind of hard to enjoy it because, man, the train rattles through the whole thing. Like, this is a really, really shaky roller coaster. Almost kind of gives you a bit of a headache afterwards. Like, if this coaster were completely smooth, like you look at Hydrus down at Casino Pier, glossy smooth, if it were like that, then I would say that they have like a really good coaster on their hands and it would be better than those Skyrocket 2s. But man, because this is like kind of rough, it's fairly hard to enjoy it. I think elements-wise, they did well. I'm not quite sure how they got such a rough ride out of this because, it just opened this year, so I'm not really quite sure what happened. But yeah, I thought it was just hard to enjoy this ride. I really wanted to like it, but I was fairly let down with it, honestly. So for its final score, I'm gonna give it like a 6.5. In general, I wasn't that impressed. I think there's a lot of good things about it. It's much better than what they did have, but the coaster definitely was not as good as I was hoping. It's not gonna make like any top lists or anything. I think it's good for the boardwalk and it's good for the park. And it's nice to see another large coaster in the New Jersey shoreline, but as a coaster enthusiast, I was not that impressed with it. So if you've ridden Gale Force, make sure to let me know about what you think of it down in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know. And of course, stay tuned for more reviews. I have plenty more coming here at Coaster Studios.